Welcome to Marketing Corner Talks, the Business Talks edition, where we dive into real stories from business owners and entrepreneurs who are building, growing, and igniting ideas in the marketplace. Today, we're joined by my good friend, Javier Lavalle, co-founder of We Make Games, a creative indie board game company that's already shaking things up in the tabletop world. Their first release, Teddies versus Monsters, sold out in 6 months. So let's go and capture some of this information. Let's see how they're doing this. We want to jump into our little story with our friend here. Javier, welcome to the show. You're doing some amazing things. Love your story. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Appreciate it, Dave. First of all, thank you so much. I love this space. I love the initiative you have to bring these kind of stories to, well, everybody, to be honest, but especially students. A little bit about the project and myself. The project began actually due to COVID, right? Many people was stuck in COVID at their homes. And I was stuck in a house with 8 roommates. And there were times in which we were all in our own room, just watching Netflix. So my best friend and I, who happened to be roommates, we said, we want to create something that helps people connect by having fun and also by telling amazing stories. And that's how the idea of creating board games started, right? Dave, I'm going to be honest. We first started with this amazing idea of a Harry Potter board game, but were really naive thinking, oh, we're just going to make the game. We're going to call Warner Brothers and they're going to say, hey, that's an amazing game. Let me buy it for you. And that's not how it works. So after a while, we come up with a really amazing idea of a really quick, easy to learn board game, which is Teddies versus Monsters. And from that point onwards, we launched our publishing company. We launched our first game, and now we are on the verge of launching the second. And we have our second batch of Teddies versus Monsters coming up.
So exciting. So take us back to why Teddies versus Monsters? What was the idea? How did that one become the first generation of this new organization?
Yeah, so, we really wanted to have in our publishing company this signature of being a publishing company that focuses on really great themes, right? We want to capture that storytelling behind the board games, not only just fun, right? And on that note, my business partner, she once woke up and said, I had a dream about this little teddy who I happened to have in my childhood that was defending me against a monster. And I was like, that's it. That's it. That's the theme of the game. Little teddy bears who protect the children against monsters who are hiding underneath the bed. That's how it happened. And from that on, we have been working on the lore, on the story behind Teddies versus Monsters like crazy. So we are also going to release that to the public as well, the whole story behind.
So launching a video game takes a lot, and not video game, sorry, my apologies, a board game, a lot. And so when you're launching this one, and your background, I think, was in business development. So how did your background play into the success of launching Teddies versus Monsters?
Yeah, good question. So my background when it comes to education is actually psychology. I have a bachelor's in psychology, which I never utilize as many people right now in the marketplace. But it helped me a lot when it comes to getting into the psyche of the player, right? I knew the kind of reactions that I wanted the game to evoke players to have. I knew the relationships that I wanted the game to make people have, right? And psychology helped me a lot for that. But when it comes to my business development background, it helped me a lot when it comes to business outreach, because most of our sales and marketing strategies are actually B2B rather than B2C, which is something I would recommend to small publishers or small companies, because then your impact is wider.
So launching a video game, a board game element is a big feat. It's huge. How did you go about it? What were the early stage challenges? What were some of the big things, the obstacles you faced as going into? You're producing something physical, not something that's on the up in the digital world.
Right. I think biggest challenge we had is that at first we didn't know we wanted to be self-publisher. What does that mean? We're like, when we had the idea of the game, we developed the game in just under 6 months, which is quite fast. But playtesting was probably the biggest challenge. We developed the game really, really fast. We thought it was ready, but then we did a year and a half of playtesting and testing and testing. So demoing and whatnot. And once you get all the mechanics of the game correct, you also need to test the colors and the characters. My co-founder, she's an amazing artist, really, really amazing. She actually happens to work in the film industry. She's an animator and a layout artist for a big studio here in Vancouver. So the art she already has. All the artwork, she did it. When it comes to some other aspects of the designs, I also support when it comes to the user experience because I have a UI UX certification. And we wanted the experience to look clean and attractive, but also for it to be inclusive. Because, for example, something we did is our game is suitable for people who have color blindness to play. Because our game is all based on symbols and colors, right? And if we had that aspect, the colors on it, a lot of people wouldn't be able to play. So we added some patterns on the corner of our cards so that people with color blindness would identify the different colors, but with patterns. That's why we did so much playtesting and playtesting and playtesting to see that we got the colors and the patterns and the playability and the cleanness right. That's why we had a year and a half of playtesting and only 6 months of development of the actual game, right? So it's a lot of testing that I didn't know it needed to happen. So the first one was that, keeping records of all of that, how to do it, where to get the playtesters, right? I think that was the big first challenge. And the second is that we didn't know that in order to publish a game, we would need to have a full company behind us. We just thought, oh, we're going to be game designers. No, no, no. Now we are entrepreneurs because in order to actually have the game into the market, we need to do all the accounting and the logistics and the shipments. And it's crazy the amount of things that is behind just one board game.
So when you're going through this journey and you're identifying these challenges and learning as you go, because as an entrepreneur and as a marketer, you're always constantly readdressing, reassessing, trying to figure out, oh, is this what they want or is it this what they want? So what were some assumptions that you thought and what actually came true and what didn't come true?
Well, I think first assumption we had is that our game would be suitable for avid board gamers, so people who play board games usually. And it happens to be that is not the case. Most of the people who like our game are people who usually don't play board games, right? And we didn't expect that. We thought that if we market to board gamers, we get sales, and it didn't happen. Dave, we spent a lot of money targeting the wrong audience because we didn't do research prior, right?
Yeah.
So we lose money and money, and then suddenly I came into the conclusion like, okay, this is not our target market. So then who is? And we figure out later on that our target market is casual players, people who every now and then, every 2 months, they play Uno or Monopoly, right? Casual games. And that difference was huge because we were marketing for the wrong audience for so long, very so long. That was a big mistake.
And lessons learned. But hey, fast forward, you sell out in your first print in 6 months, which
Yes.
seems like an incredible feat for this element. So take us through that. What were the drivers of that? What were the channels that you used? How did you get out there? How did you get that success?
Well, so we needed to pivot because at first, as I mentioned, we were trying to get avid board gamers, and we were trying to get them via what today are mainstream marketing strategies, usually digital. So TikTok and Instagram and Facebook ads. It happens to be, Dave, that at least for this industry, traditional marketing, it's really important, and we didn't know. So when we realized that our ads were not working and our social media was not as good, we said, okay, what we need to do is to go to events. So we went to a lot of conventions. We made a lot of hangouts, flyers. We talked to a lot of people. We did a lot of collaborations. So traditional marketing rather than digital marketing. And then we combined, right? First, we got the first interaction with people with traditional marketing. And through that, we send them to a digital funnel, right? After the first connection was traditional, which is something I didn't expect either. I was preparing all my strategy on mainstream marketing, digital marketing. But we spent $5,000 in ads with almost no return, and we knew that something was not right. The issue here is that most of the key decision makers in the industry, whether that is manufacturers, whether that is distributors, retailers, they are not Gen Z, they are not millennials, they are older generation. And once one of a retail owner told me, most of the games I buy, I see them first in a physical magazine that I get to the store that is just for board games that are about to publish, and I pick one. And I was like, there's a magazine for that? And I knew that we needed to try traditional marketing. So that's why a lot of in-person events, a lot of handouts, a lot of in-person demoing with retailers, right? So yeah, that's how we figure out by learning for our mistakes. And now we're trying to do a combination of both, right? We need to do B2B traditional marketing to try to get the attention of retailers and distributors, but we need to do digital marketing for millennials, Gen Z, and whatnot, right? To have the demand so that they also want to buy the game.
This is beautiful because we talk about in marketing, we talk about outbound versus inbound marketing,
Mhm.
push versus pull marketing. And this comes into this element of this application. We hear this theory, this idea. How does this then transcend into, having success in the market? So from going from outside elements of using things that are not digitalized and moving them into a digitalized, more inbound approach. What a brilliant direction. And again, leading towards more success in reaching those customers. So, but one of the big things that I love to talk to students about is about storytelling because
Mhm.
brand is really built in storytelling. What is the message of the brand? What's the story? So when you're making these games and making this one, like what is the story, the brand identity that you're trying to tell?
I think there's two aspects to this. One we didn't expect, which is, and it's really important. People love to see people do a journey that they maybe want to do. So both the entrepreneurial journey and designing a game, it's something that many people is interested in. So whenever we start showing the game, people were asking a lot of questions, not about the game per se, but about the
Yeah.
process. And with that, by default and almost by accident, we did inbound marketing because then we start doing content for those people like, hey, this is how we are doing this. This is the tips that I can give you. This is the context you need in order to get a manufacturer, right? And that helped a lot. So that's one of the personality of the brand is around, first of all, educational towards the audience. Um, and the second is storytelling. Whenever we tell people about the game and Teddies vs. Monsters, they're always like, oh, that's an interesting story. Tell me more. And they always want to know more about the idea and the lore behind the game. And that's something that we didn't plan at first, but people start because they start asking. We said we have something here, and we took advantage and we pivot again towards that. So the reason why we start writing the lore of the game is because when people saw the name of the game, the first thing they told us like, "Oh, you could do a role playing game like a Dungeons and Dragons in which people play as one of your characters and they go into a campaign." And when we thought about that, we said, okay, in order for us to do that, we first need to legally be protected when it comes to our intellectual property. And in order for us to do that, we need to write a lot. So I'm literally writing right now a book on the Teddy vs. Monster story that at first is not going to be available to public, even though it's going to be published. We are not going to sell it, not promote it. The only purpose, the whole purpose, is to protect the IP. After we have the IP protected, we can talk about the lore, we can develop new games, everything we want. So right now I'm writing the lore of the game. How do we do it? Um, Everything comes based on the experience of the game. Because in our game, teddies are literally fighting monsters. That's the topic behind the lore. So we thought to ourselves, why would teddies, in which world would teddies need to fight monsters? And we are developing the whole story to answer that question.
I love it, my friend. And then, so what channels do you think were the best for you? Like, which ones? Social influencers, conventions. What turned out to be the best ones for you?
In-person events for sure. Our conversion rate, whenever we showed the game to someone, it's around 75%, which is
Wow.
super high, something you would never get in apps. So in-person events, either we organize them, we go to conventions, we go to local gaming stores to showcase our game and do demos. Those are the best, right? Um, Online, our own social media didn't go did that good, but influencer marketing, it was quite decent. The problem was for a small company like us, we only selected few influencers that had a really big audience, which was great impact. But then we didn't have the budget for more, so we did a lot of giveaways to influencers. We sent them the game for free, micro influencers in exchange for a review of the game, and that also worked way better when it comes to conversion rate than the macro influencers. When I say micro, I mean small accounts that are usually just starting to create content, or they have been creating content for a while, but they don't have more than 2,500 to 4,000 followers. So that for us is micro, but it also depends on their conversion rates, right? In many occasions, micro influencers, they have better engagement than macro by a lot. But macro influencers, so we work with this influencer that has 1.5 million followers. For us, his engagement rate was 2%, which is still great. It's a lot of views. It has a lot of likes. It was a lot of sales. But the engagement rate was way better with micro. When it comes to finding them, funny enough, micro influencers usually reach out to us because they want to make content and they actually like the game and they wanted to support us in exchange just for the game for free. So we said yes. When it comes to macro, we were doing research with our competitors. Who are they working with? Which are best? We did our research on best engagement rate versus conversion rate, and that's how we decided who to work with. As for pricing, the pricing is established based on the market, right? We worked with a couple of macro influencers that were actually managed by this really big company that manages talent. So they have a lot of influencers in different industries, and we needed to deal with this company as a middleman, and they put the price. And based on that price, I think the rest of the influencers also set the price.
So, how do you take that physical approach and you need to scale? Vancouver is not a very big place, and you want to scale beyond Vancouver to other areas across the country and into other
Yes.
different global markets. How do you take that physical? Because if they need to touch and feel it or do it, how do you transform your marketing and messaging to be able to give people that exposure?
But that's a really big challenge we have, and something we have been doing. It's we try to get in touch with people from maybe abroad, U.S., Mexico, Spain, for example. We're getting in touch with people who are either fans of board games or who are also publishers, the small publishers like us, and we partner with them so that if they are going to a convention in Spain and we are not there, we pay for part of their expenses in order for them to also showcase our game side to side to their game, right? So that's a way that it's a 50-50 relationship. They win, we support them with their expenses, and we share our audience as well. So that's a way to transition from physical to digital in this day and age with a low budget, right? Because otherwise, if I could, I would go to every convention in every part of the world. But it's not possible.
But great way to think outside the box and looking at partnerships. And is there anything like a meetup for games where you can provide
Oh
your
yeah,
board game to meetups and they can play it?
you're gonna laugh really hard about this, but there's even a cruise. You can go on a cruise that it actually departs from Vancouver that is only for board games. From here to Alaska, playing board games. Um, so yeah, there's so many. So something we didn't know also before is whenever we heard board game convention, we thought the point of the convention was just to go and play games. But apparently, there's different types of conventions. There's conventions for board gamers to talk to retailers, board gamers to talk to publishers, board gamers to talk to the final consumer, and there's even conventions for prototyping. So testing your game, testing your new
Yeah.
idea of the game.
So the next approach is you're going through your next growth stage. What are
Yep.
some of the challenges you're facing, and how are you overcoming them, or how are you facing them, or how are you addressing them?
Funny. So happy problems, Dave. Because we sold out so quick and we didn't expect that, we didn't have our second batch of games ready. And because of that, right now we had a couple of, well, not a couple, a lot of people asking for our game, and we cannot fulfill the demand, right? So the challenge is that we might lose momentum because we didn't have the games on time. So in this industry, timing and playing with your timing, it's so important. So important, timing and budget, right? Because also if I invested all my money in the first in the get go, to have more games, I don't know if that would be sustainable, right? So it's a really delicate balance between, do I spend all the money? Do I bring all the games? Should I pause? We are still figuring out how to do that.
So when you're going to market and you're doing mostly what I understand you're doing is more direct to consumer marketing or direct to consumer sales, are you using any other channels such as Amazon, or have you even thought about even getting into retail partnerships?
Oh, actually, most of our sales are retail. It's business to business more than business to consumer. Having a low budget as a indie designer means that you need to stretch a little bit, right? And because the conversion rate doing ads and whatnot was not the best, we decided that the best was to partner with distributors. So we pitch our game to distributors that then if they like the game, they pay you for your game and then they sell it to retail. There's different ways to work with distributors, right? They can either work with you based on concession. That means that you send them some games, I don't know, 400 games, for example, and then they try to place the games. And if they don't sell, they give the games back to you and nothing happens. If they start to sell the games, they will then give you a commission for every game. Sorry, you will give them a commission for every game they sell. The commission for them is lower compared to if they buy the games. So the other alternative is, instead of me borrowing 400 games to them, they buy 400 games, but their margin is bigger, of course, right? So a good way to start also working with distributors, especially if you have no sales, is offering the concession deal first, because there's no risk. That's how it works. I mean, I think the first approach with distributors is really important. We are working currently with the largest distributor in Canada. And the way we got in is we got the contact, we sent an email, they didn't reply, they didn't reply. And one day we said, what if we go to their office? And we did, and we just stand there. And we brought our game, of course, to do a demo, and also some cookies, kind of like to bribe them to, hey, please pay attention. And we pitched the game to them. I think one of the things you should do when working with distributors is first research if they have already on the portfolio something like your game. Because if they have a lot like your game, the likelihood that they will say, hey, yeah, I want to buy your game is low, right? Unless you have credibility. Because it was our first game and we had no sales, no credibility. So we needed something else. And what we brought is that they didn't have a game like ours for them to provide to the stores. So that was an advantage. So I would for sure say research if they have a game like yours. If they do, wait until you have credibility and then reach out. As for the moment, we have purchase orders from distributors in Mexico and Spain who are waiting for the game in order to fulfill orders, right? So that's what we're doing. We're doing a lot of business to business through distribution.
So that leads me to another question, my friend, because one of the things that you think about is that when you go in, you're diversifying your market, and we're talking about the place in the four P's of marketing. You come down this pathway of going into other countries and other languages. How do you transcend the game and offer it in different languages in order to meet the new market demands?
Yeah, that's a big challenge because each country might have, for example, Europe has different requirements for you to have the box in a certain way other than Mexico, for example. It just happens to be that you can prepare your box to be ready for Europe and you just take it also to Mexico, right? But you're right. Right now, the first challenge we had is that we needed to translate the game. Even though our game is really easy and the game itself, the mechanics, they have no language, it's all images, symbols. The rule book, the box, the back of the box, all of that needed to be in Spanish. So we needed to translate the game, and we made a deal with a manufacturer for them to charge us as if we were printing one game, even though it's two, to be honest, right? Because we have the English version and we have the Spanish version. So we needed to negotiate in order for them to agree, okay, yeah, we can print just one batch as if it was one game. So a lot of challenges. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of logistics to learn and to comply with, which is also a really, really big challenge. Um, Warehousing, you have no idea how difficult warehousing is. It's a lot of logistics. So my approach is, to be honest, I ask a lot of questions. I'm asking people who have been on my shoes and are doing better than us, and trying to follow their steps. But we are doing a lot of partnerships in the areas that we are not confident that we can do ourselves. So for example, for forwarding is the process of bringing the game from abroad. For forwarding, we have a partner and we pay a little bit more to them in order for them to do their job and for us to not have an issue with it, rather than to try to do ourselves and then have our mistakes. Because forwarding is really, really delicate. You are dealing with international trade and with customs. It's a whole deal. So we are partnering with people in order to be able to succeed in the areas that we are not as strong.
So wait, what's next for We Make Games? Where are you going next? You've had success with this initial one. You've talked about launching some other brands, and I think you even said a second version of Teddies to Monsters or Teddies versus Monsters. What's
Yep.
next for you, Xavier?
So something that happens when you are in this industry, especially if you work a lot with retailers, is I want you to imagine as if we were book authors, right? A lot of people said the second book is more important than the first one. Reason being is because if the first one is a success, you already put like a bar, like a high expectations. And for your next game, you need to comply. But not only that, Dave, when it comes to retailers, they usually like to give their shelf space to people that can fill this shelf with more games that are high quality, right? So if I'm trying to get my game into, I don't know, Indigo, right? Well, my book, sorry, to Indigo. and I'm trying to compete with Stephen King, right? Who has a lot of books and he has a lot of credibility. Who is Indigo gonna give the shelf space?
Mhm.
Stephen King, right? So what retailers ask you is make more games, and if you do, I will buy even more games from you, or I maybe give you a fixed shelf space, which is really interesting. So now we have the challenge. So next step is make a second game for sure, while we also comply with the demand we have for the first game, which is Teddies versus Monsters.
But this is a really interesting dilemma because when we talk about physical retail stores, and you alluded to it, Xavier, is that retail stores need to turn inventory. And if they're not able to turn the inventory, that's not a positive margin to them and to their profitability. So they need things to move quickly on the shelf. So you've got this combination of, hey, I got a great game, but you also need to build a great brand in
Yes.
We Make Games. You need to make We Make Games, like no matter what lands on that shelf, that We Make Games, that people recognize We Make Games as well as Teddies and Monsters and other ones.
Correct, correct. Because that way, like stores would know, hey, if I buy Uno games of Uno to sell, I know Uno is gonna sell, so I can dedicate a lot of space to Uno. So that's kind of like what the retailers want. They want you to succeed in order for them to buy more, right? So yes, you're right. Both the game needs to be good, but you as a publisher needs to have a lot of credibility.
And so, Xavier, what kind of marketing tactics do you use with your B2B customers to help them sell your games and help create that brand recognition?
A lot of it's demoing helps a lot, and testimonials, they help a lot. As you probably know, like any other industry, there's big board game influencers that unless you're in the industry, you don't know them. But it's really important to get their feedback. And if you do, then retailers are more convinced to try to sell your game. But more than that, you also give them data. You say, hey, our board game, it's appealing to families and people between X and Y, right? Um, the playtime is this and the shelf space is this, right? So that's also important. My game is small, so I don't use a lot of your space. So therefore, you might be more willing to bet on my game because it's not going to use a lot of your space, right? So that's also really important. As a matter of fact, the second version of Teddies versus Monsters, we are going to modify a little bit so that the box is smaller just for retailers. We didn't know this before, but now we do. So we are optimizing everything so that retailers are happy with the box.
So, Xavier, if you were to look back in the journey so far, everything that you've learned as We Make Games and even Teddies versus Monsters and any future games that are coming our way, looking back, what is the biggest lesson you and your team, your co-founder have learned since launching We Make Games?
I think biggest lesson is you need to build a community behind your game, your brand, your publishing company, because the community is what is going to help you succeed. 100%. If we have known this from the get-go, we would have done this way, way earlier, right? But getting your audience involved in your process is something that people like a lot now, right? Those brands that have no face are something from the past. Most brands now want somebody to represent them, and people want to connect with that, and they also want to help in the process, right? Sometimes we ask our audience on Instagram, hey, do you want this logo, this color or this color? And they like to do that, right? So if I knew, I would have done that from the get-go.
I love it, my friend. So, and again, one of the questions I always like to ask is what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs looking to launch something in a creative space like this and a competitive space?
First of all, do it. Don't overthink it. And there's a lot of learning you can do in the process. Um, and you can ask a lot of questions and a lot of people will reply. That's something that surprised me. I thought that because at the end of the day, I'm competing on the same market with other distributors and designers and publishers, they wouldn't answer my questions, but they actually do. They want you to succeed. They want the industry to be uplifted and they help you out. So don't be afraid to ask questions. That would be the first one. Don't be afraid to just try and learn in the process. And the third one would be document everything you do because that is going to help you one, learn, and second, create that community that I'm talking about, right? So document everything you do, share it on social. Don't think too much about it. You can share a super casual video on your phone and share it to your audience, and that would be more than enough.
I love it, my friend. I'm a big passion of doing, and doing is everything. So putting it into action. So, hey, listeners out there, here's your challenge. If you're advising Xavier and his team, his co-founder and himself, at We Make Games, what would you do next? How can a small creative brand scale sustainably while competing against big publishers out there in the market? Okay, I want you to think about that. I also want you to think about the message out there because we are talking to Xavier, who is both a marketing professional and a business development specialist, and we've heard some really great theories and ideas around these and how hearing them going into application. So thinking about those application. Xavier, so how does our listeners get in touch with you if they want to learn more about We Make Games and they want to learn about how they maybe can support you or share some of their ideas? How can they reach you?
For sure, they are free to reach me out on LinkedIn. I'm always active on LinkedIn. I try to provide as much value with my content as I can for anybody who's reading or listening out there. So LinkedIn would be probably the first. A second, Instagram. They can just go to @Teddies versus Monsters on Instagram. They will find the game, and I'm the guy who is behind the Instagram. So if you send a message there and say, "Hey Javier," I'm gonna reply myself. And they can also look for me on my personal Instagram as well @Xavier Lavalle on Instagram, and I'm gonna reply for sure.
Thank you very much, my friend. Get out there, reach out. You got some ideas. You want to talk to Xavier, you want to talk to Xavier and his team. Share those ideas, guys. That's what we want to do. So, Xavier, it has been amazing. Full of fun, insightful conversations about board games. I love it. Thank you for sharing your story and congratulations on your success you've had with We Make Games. To our listeners, this episode doubles as a live business case for our marketing and entrepreneurship students, but it also has some ideas and theory in there about professionals. So we're exploring strategies to help We Make Games grow. Thanks for tuning in to Marketing Corner Talks, the Business Talks edition, where real business becomes real learning experiences. Until next time, keep igniting those ideas.
Thank you so much, Dave.